decent job at a living wage, health care, and the undiluted protections of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. On health care, as a conservative, I believe that the only fiscally responsible way to provide universal health care is to kick the insurance companies out of health care completely. This eliminates their overhead and profit, which amount to about half of every health care dollar, their bean counting, and their interference between doctor and patient. I therefore recommend a doctor-run, single-payer national health program. Now, as a step toward the living wage, I propose that the minimum wage be indexed for inflation, and over a 10-year period be raised to what it would have been had it been so indexed at its creation, currently over $14 an hour. Now, as you know, the previous administration resigned under threat of impeachment. They were being impeached over their exploitation of the 9/11 tragedy to deceive this nation into unnecessary and illegal wars of aggression. And they still face court-martial for abuse of power as Commander-in-Chief. Now, the evidence of their guilt is overwhelming. This evidence is in the PNAC document calling for the permanent occupation of Iraq justified by a new Pearl Harbor. It is in Richard Clarke's book, in which he notes an immediate attempt by the Bush administration to tie Iraq to 9/11, regardless of the facts. It is in videotape statements of Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld themselves using Iraq to try to justify the Iraq War. It is in CIA documents showing that Wolfowitz, Libby, Pearl, Feith, and others cherry-picked intelligence for use by Cheney and their other bosses. It is in the Downing Street memo, which notes that the intelligence was being tailored to fit the policy. And it is in speeches by me and others prior to the invasion of Iraq, in which we laid out the truth, predicted the inevitable results, and noted that such an invasion would be an impeachable offense and an act of treason. There is also evidence of a massive cover-up with respect to 9/11 itself. The official 9/11 report, tightly controlled by the White House, amounts to a little bit of gigantic whitewash. When combined with the confiscation of videotapes, audio tapes, black boxes, and other evidence by the FBI, it is clear that regardless of who was responsible for 9/11, the subsequent cover-up was itself a conspiracy involving elements of the White House and the intelligence establishment. Now, this is important because remember, Richard Nixon wasn't undone by the 2-bit break-in at the Watergate. Bill Clinton wasn't impeached for his sexual encounters with Monica Lewinsky, but for stretching the truth when asked about it. Scooter Libby wasn't convicted for leaking Valerie Plane's identity, but for lying about when he learned about it. And Martha Stewart didn't serve time for insider trading, but for not telling the truth. Is there anyone who believes that the Bush administration always told the truth about 9/11? Well, this raises the question. If the Bush administration had nothing to hide, why did they hide everything? Were they covering up guilt or incompetence? And if it was incompetence, why was no one fired or demoted or court-martialed or even reprimanded? And if it was guilt, were the guilty parties Saudis, Pakistanis, Israelis, Americans, all of the above? And why on earth aren't the people's representatives in Congress asking these questions and demanding answers? has still not been told who was really responsible for 9/11. Dedicated researchers have proven that it could not have happened the way the Bush administration said it did. Hijacked airliners do not fly around for an hour and 40 minutes without being intercepted, unless our air defense system was deliberately sabotaged. Indestructible black boxes, and they're not really black, they're bright orange, but anyway, indestructible black boxes do not evaporate in a fire, the same fire from which an unharmed passport floats to the street below. Steel skyscrapers do not implode and collapse at free fall speed because of a kerosene fire. Steel buildings do not collapse at all because of a kerosene fire. Never have and never will. And Building 7 wasn't even struck by an aircraft. Let's see if this works.
Building number 7 at the World Trade Center was a 47-story building with a steel frame. No airplane crashed into it, nor did the towers fall onto it. However, this building disintegrated on September 11th.
More on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago, was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know, but New York very much...
There it is over her left shoulder, still standing. That's World Trade Center 7. The BBC read the press release too soon.
July 24th, 2001. Larry A. Silverstein, who already owned World Trade Center 7, signs a $3.2 billion 99-year lease on the entire World Trade Center complex 6 weeks before 9/11. Included in the lease is a $3.5 billion insurance policy, specifically covering acts of terrorism.
PBS has a documentary called America Rebuilds, in which Larry Silverstein, the landlord of Building 7, explains what happened.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
See how the middle of it caves in first and then the rest comes out. Notice that all the floors stay the same distance apart all the way down. They are not pancaking. Do you see any fires in the building? Look at that. Experts look at that and say it is a perfect example of a controlled demolition. And there's a real controlled demolition on the left for comparison.